Now we're moving on to the part of the show where I get to talk about my favorite plant, tomatoes. Today you'll hear a chat that I had with Linda Crago, who is one of my tomato mentors. I was at a gardening event this spring, and I was lucky enough to have a table next to her where she had some trays of compact little tomato plants. Now, I thought it'd be fun to look at compact tomato plants because not everyone has the space for full-size tomato plants. And we're also going to mention some other really neat varieties that I'm so excited to grow this summer. So here's my chat with Linda Crago. So Linda's on the line with me now to talk about tomatoes. Hey, Linda.
Hey, how are you, Emma?
Pretty good. Excited to be talking about tomatoes.
Of course.
Yeah, so my first question was about the house tomato. Now, when I saw you at a CD Saturday, I got 2 really beautiful house tomato plants from you. And can you tell our listeners what's so special about the house tomato?
Well, it's a pretty neat little plant. They don't grow very tall at all, maybe a foot, possibly a little bit more. It's actually an indeterminate plant, so it doesn't grow very big, but it continues to blossom and produce fruit all season, which is sort of the definition of an indeterminate plant. So it's a great little plant, and the idea, and of course tomatoes in our climate we consider them annuals, but in other climates they're certainly not. They're perennials. They don't. So the neat thing about the house tomato is at the end of the season, you can bring it in, it'll look scraggly, no question about it. Cut it back a little bit and then put it in a really nice south-facing window, give it a little bit of kelp fertilizer, and it'll survive all winter, reasonably dormant, but you may get, a tomato or 2 here or there. And then at the end of the winter, harden it off, take it outside again in the spring, and there you go. You're off to the races.
Well, I'm really excited to try that because I grew a house tomato that I got from you last year in the garden, but I didn't bring it inside. And so this year, I want to try that because, you know what? I love tomatoes, and if I can get them in the winter, that's just amazing.
Yeah, and the thing about this plant is the tomatoes are very good. Like they're really sweet and they're prolific. They're just little round red cherry tomatoes, but they're really, really delicious. So, I mean, that's why we grow tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
Because of so that's the bonus. It's funny, the house tomato. It's a very old tomato. It's actually Russian, and it first came over to North America, to Saskatchewan, in the late 1800s. So it's a variety that's been around for years and years, and some people have really, grown them year round. And the fellow who's has the longest living one is been 12 years.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool.
I'm going to start mine this year, the ones that you started, and I'm going to try and keep them as long as I can now.
Yeah.
Problem isn't bad with houseplants. I kill them very quickly.
Well, yeah, but let's be real here. I mean, this is a tomato. It's different.
Yeah. Tomatoes are definitely different.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, well, I was wondering if there's other compact varieties that you've grown or heard of that are kind of like the house tomato.
Well, I mean, there's sort of, there's every type of tomatoes that you can imagine. Of course, there are some that I've grown that are like actually mini dwarfs, so they're much, much smaller than the house tomato. They, some of them, for example, the micro tom, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. I've grown some little yellow ones too. They only grow, honestly, no more than, 2 or 3 inches high.
Wow.
So, and possibly, I don't know, with the fully leaved, maybe, 4 inches in diameter. So they're very small. So you could certainly do the same thing with them, but I find with them the tomatoes just aren't quite as tasty. They're drier, and they struggle a little bit more, I think, health-wise, because they're so close to the soil. But to my way of thinking, the house is kind of unique. But I mean, you certainly could bring any tomato plant in the fall. And I've done just that. I've had, this winter I brought a sun gold in, and of course it's a very large variety, but But I overwintered it and I cut it back. It's in my greenhouse now, and I've done it with yellow pear. And you will get, it's the same thing. You'll still get, you'll get a little bit of fruit, not a whole ton, but you can certainly overwinter all the plants. But the house is certainly, the easiest.
Yeah.
Because of, otherwise you end up with a jungle in your living room window, which